Do you ever feel like life is flat, neutral, bland, boring, grey? Well, you might be experiencing the meaningless problem. And the way I like to view it is in this 5 phases of freedom model. I view it as the third phase. And this is a phase where we often don't realize we're in it. And often we've done a lot of healing and inner work even to get to this place. And we're going, well, I don't feel bad, but I just feel really neutral and kind of flat. And I'm wondering, is that what I did all this healing for? Is that what I did all this work for? So I can just kind of feel a bit bland about life, a bit neutral about life. Just whatever happens, happens, it doesn't really matter. But there's so much richness left to explore. And it's really hard to notice that actually we're creating and generating our neutrality. We're generating the flatness, the grayness. But let's go quickly through the 5 phases of freedom model. There's a whole video about this, but it starts, number one, you're trapped, right? You might have external success, but internally you feel like you're a slave to your kanda. You feel resistance inside. You feel anxiety and stress all day. And then you break out of that and you come into liberation and you really start healing yourself. You start breaking the constructs that have been keeping you stuck. You start feeling more freedom, feeling more flow with who you are. You start feeling a breaking away from those old anxieties and those old stories. But then what tends to happen, and this is what we're going to be speaking about today, is sometimes we start generating neutrality, flatness. If that doesn't matter, then nothing matters. Who cares? And we don't realize we're doing it. We don't realize that we're living in new stories that we've just generated that make our life feel kind of neutral, kind of boring, not that fun. But then what happens is we break through that. We pierce through the storylines that have created that experience. And we find integration. This is where often our joy, our aliveness, our wonder and awe comes back. And it's not the same as 1 and 2, where we maybe felt real joy, real aliveness, but we felt the stress as well. Now we've got rid of the stress. We might even have a neutrality to life and a peacefulness, but we're able to experience deep aliveness within that, deep joy within that, and really actually go on and live our life fully. When finally we get into union, this is where everything has come together through the integration phase, external, internal, mind, heart, body. Everything has come together, right? Symbolic, somatic, cognitive, it's all come together, and we're just expanding in all directions. And it's the most beautiful stage we can really get to. And it feels absolutely, extremely free. But we're going to be really dialing in on the meaningless problem, because this is where a lot of people get stuck. And the way you kind of know you're there is, are you experiencing meaningless? Flatness, grayness, pointlessness, neutrality. Neutrality in itself isn't wrong, but sometimes we think we're being neutral, but we're actually in the grayness, the pointlessness, the flatness, the meaninglessness, right? We feel unmotivated, uninspired. We're not enjoying life. We don't really care. And what tends to happen, and the reason this happens, is if you can imagine our freedom, right? And we have a bottom layer and a top layer. And often the first things we tackle in stage 2 is the bottom layer. We remove the stress, the anxiety. We remove the negative symptoms, the symptoms that are just creating so much horrible tension inside of our body. And so we really remove that bottom layer and we start feeling free, so safe, so comfortable, peaceful with life. It's such a relief. But we forget about the top layer, which is where we become limitless. Right? The top layer is like, what's our upper comfort zone? This comes from Kimbata. He's an amazing mentor of mine, a psychotherapist, incredible person. He talks about the upper comfort zone. What's our upper experience of life that we're actually maybe limiting ourselves? When it gets so good and we bring ourselves down. And often it's so obvious for lower comfort zone, right? The lower freedom, where we're creating stress and anxiety, it's obvious. That's something right in our face to deal with and to remove. But we don't see the upper one. And this is where the meaningless trap comes in, where we feel pretty okay. We feel pretty neutral. We're not experiencing negative symptoms, but we're not allowing ourselves to experience all the positivity, all the joy of life, all the aliveness. And so when we start looking towards that layer, we start getting curious what it would be like to break it, what it would be like to open it up. It actually is very similar to opening up the bottom layer. We just have to realize it's there. And that's the biggest problem with this, is we just think, this is my life now. We feel meaningless, pointless, grayness, and we just think that's life. That's just how it is. What's the point? I'm not motivated. That's just how life is. That's what happens when you do healing. But the reality is completely different. The reality is we're creating that. The reality is we're creating the neutrality, the grayness, the pointlessness with our upper comfort zone. And when we break through that, we get to really experience whatever that is for us, the joy, the aliveness that we might want to experience, the inspiration, the motivation even. But we have to realize it's there, and we have to get curious, what are the constructs and stories that are creating it to begin with? So for example, I had a client who was experiencing this meaninglessness, this apathy. Oh, I'm not bothered. And the trigger was nothing to do. He's, really reached a high level as a sales manager. He's got plenty of money, and he's just working a few hours a day and just doing really, really well, living an amazing life. He's got so much freedom. He's got some great friends. But sometimes throughout the day, he just has nothing to do. And he was finding that experience of feeling like there's nothing to do, being on his own, created this sense of meaninglessness, apathy, and even a subtle judgment. And it just wasn't that fun to be around. It wasn't that fun to live. It wasn't that fun to experience life. It was kind of just like, oh well, just get through the day. But we got curious, what is the internal process that's creating the trigger and creating the symptom? And the first line that came was like, well, I should do something. Okay. We got a little bit more curious. It's like, well, I should do something so that when I'm around my friends, I can show I'm actually doing something cool. I'm actually living my life, right? I'm actually doing something great. And we got a little bit lower and a little bit more curious. And we realized there was a construct that I need to kind of be great, be really good at something to be meaningful, to be good enough in some ways, right? To be appreciated and included. And we found where this meaning had been generated from, where it had been taken from. And when we found where it had come from, which was a kind of family story, we were able to give it back. And then what emerged was this real just appreciation of who he was, just as he was. A real appreciation and gratitude of just himself, without doing anything or not doing anything. And what started to happen is all that space and all that time that was available for him just became a wonderful place where he could just be with himself, appreciate himself, be grateful for himself. Not from top down, I should be grateful, I should appreciate myself, but just because it was really coming from him so effortlessly, so easily. And it was so enjoyable. Those moments became so wonderful and enjoyable. And he started realizing, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. I can even tell my friends that. I don't need to be doing something else. It's kind of cool, but I've got all the time in the day. You'll probably be jealous of that. And he started to see that this trigger of having nothing to do, nothing that needs doing, was just the most wonderful, wonderful time that he could have. Either just being on his own, being with his own energy, appreciating himself, or even what he found was there was more inspiration and motivation and joy to do other things from this space. because he wasn't looking around, what should I do, what should I do, what should I do? He was just able to enjoy the spaciousness, which led to that creativity emerging. And it allowed for apathy, the meaninglessness, the lack of motivation just to drop away. And so there's actually very little difference to number 1 and 2, where we break through the stories that are creating the stress and the anxiety. It's just having to realize that those symptoms of meaninglessness, flatness, grayness, pointlessness, and neutrality are symptoms. They are things we're generating. And in the same way we generated the stress and the anxiety, and we found the constructs and the stories that created it, we can do the exact same here, and we liberate the upper comfort zone, our upper freedom, and we allow ourselves to move into stage 4, which is all about integration of everything, an expansion of who we truly are.